Okay, I'll call the meeting to order and I'll look for my clerk for roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 11th Committee of the Whole meeting. I'm Jennifer Connor, Clerk of Ramara Township. I'll begin with roll call of council. Mayor Clark.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Snutch.
Present.
Councillor Fisher.
Present.
Councillor Tuyu.
Present.
And Councillor Bell.
Present.
Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form a part of the live stream. The chair, chief administrative officer, and/or clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate or unacceptable behavior and/or comments.
Okay, thank you. And I realize as committee of the whole, we usually don't have announcements, but I have an introduction I'd like to make today. We have our deputy clerk on a one-year contract, Amber McDonald. Welcome. And you're a local that grew up here. So it's always nice to see the locals come home and realize what a great place this is to, how do they put that, live, work, and play. With that, we also have an announcement for a fundraiser. If Councillor Fisher, you'd like to take that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure council's aware that 2 weeks ago, we had a family in our community lose their home to fire, and it's a total loss, not by any fault of our fire team. They were out there, worked hard. I know your son's on the fire department, mine as well, and I couldn't be more proud of these young guys and women. That being said, there's a need obviously in our community for this family, and it was recognized by some of their neighbors, some of their friends, some of their family members, and even some strangers in the community. So they very quickly threw together a fundraiser to happen this past weekend, and it was we had 7 different bands and musicians come out to donate their time. We had sponsors from all over offer donations to put as prizes in a silent auction table, as well as there were some few games that were run. And I could not be more proud of our community and the efforts that they took to come together during this terrible, terrible time. And there was over $10,000 raised just on that Saturday night alone. There's over 200 people that came in and out of Udney all day and afternoon and into the night. So it was just absolutely incredible. Like it reminded me of pre-COVID times when people actually talked to each other and went out and did things together. It was absolutely beautiful. I was able to stay for the duration. This family are very dear friends of ours, of our families, and super, super sad and tragic. They've had people just reach out and just so generous with their offerings. So it was just really nice. I couldn't be more proud of our community members. They really, Ramara really pulled through.
And again, thank you to everybody at home that took the time to go out to that. So with that, I will roll into our agenda. Do I have disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? I didn't think I saw any there. Deputations, presentations, we have none, but we have transportation services, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. We have one item on today. It is 4.1, infrastructure tender award mosquito larviciding program and dust suppressant ID 10-24-PDF. Recommendation that report ID 10-2024 be received and the council contract with Zimmer Air Services and for the application of mosquito larvicide at a bid price of $23,535.54 plus applicable taxes, and that council contract the natural insect control for the supply of mosquito larvicide at the bid price of $27,683 plus applicable taxes, and that council contract with Pollard's Distribution, Inc. for the 2024-2025 dust suppressants program at the estimated bid price of $253,500 for 2024 and $256,750 for 2025 plus applicable taxes, and that the successful bidders be advised accordingly. Somebody put that on 4 for me. Mayor Clark, and second by Councillor Snutch. Okay, any comments?
Counselor Tuya.
Thank you. Through the chair, can I please ask Ashley to put the map on screen depicting the areas of the township currently benefiting from the mosquito larviciding program? Thanks. And thank you, Josh, for sharing this map with me to demonstrate that the program is mostly in the southwestern quadrant of the township. I just have a question and a follow-up for Josh. Is it only township-owned lands that would qualify to be included in the larvicide program?
No, it's township and private.
Great. And in the past, we have discussed expanding the program to phase in other areas of the township. Can you please give any update at all on where we last left off with the plans to expand the program and the timeline? I would like to ensure that we look at the possibilities of expanding it sooner rather than later, given how effective it has been in the areas where it is currently in use, and especially given that your team has made the conscious effort to use a more effective larvicide that is an organic biological solution that does not use chemicals or cause harm to other wildlife. Can you give any idea on whether we will be moving toward a township-wide method or a gradual phased-in approach?
So the plan for 2024 is to look at expanding that program for 2025. We're not sure exactly how it's going to look for 2025 at this point. In the budget for this year, we included $10,000 to work with Zimmer Air Services to investigate areas to expand the program and the best way to expand the program and what the best products are for the application in future years. So I'll have a report later this year on steps moving forward. I know last year we did talk about expanding everything this year township wide, but there was some issues with the contractor and even for the permitting. We have to notify every resident that could be affected by this and give them the opportunity to opt out of the program. By opting out of the program, it doesn't mean you opt out of the financial side of it. You just opt out of the spray being in the area of your residence. So with the letters being sent out to all the residents, we're going to have to, I'm not sure that's what we have to work towards, but we may have to start earlier in the year prior to budget if we're looking at the entire township, because to get all the letters out and the window of opportunity for them to opt out of the program, it has to be in line with putting the application in for the permit to apply the pesticide or apply the larvicides on the property. So it's right now with the properties we have, it's about 1,300 hectares. The whole process from putting the letters out to receiving the permit takes about 4 to 6 months. It's really tight as it is. So if we expand that program, I'm probably going to have to start the notification processes earlier in the year, just because how long it takes to get everything out and then the ministry review and everything. So when I did look expanding it, I think I estimated going from 1,300 hectares to about 13,000 hectares. So it's a large expansion, and it's just whether or not the contractors are able to do it all in a 1 year jump, or if we have to phase it in over a few years. So
Thanks.
Good. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Snutch.
Well, it's not a question, but I just want to, I guess it is a question. We don't even know yet as to whether the public wants this. Why are we spending money if we don't know if I haven't had one person in my ward come up to me and say we need a mosquito program in place. So it's just a question. Have we reached out to the public to see if they want us to spend their money on this?
physically, I don't believe we've reached out to all of public for comment. We do every year get inquiries to expand the program, more specific to, I want my house sprayed, and we're not just going to spray one house, it's an area. There was the discussion last year with council to expand the program, and everybody, I think it was at that point in favor. I don't know if it was everybody. I can't recall exactly who or who not, but the consensus was to move forward with the entire township.
All right. Any other? Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Yeah, we did just because I brought it back because it was supposed to go to 24 budget and then didn't. So we did just have this conversation. But I guess what I'm wondering now is our appetite to put a motion on the floor then that lets you get out and start doing that engagement and sending out the letters. Do you need that now, or are you not there yet?
The letters to opt out, or the letters if there's appetite to move the program township wide?
I think that based on what you've said in these discussions, we already know the appetite is there. So would we be ready to do the step of opt out, or do you need, like, if you need 4 to 6 months, I guess I'm saying we would never get it in for 25 unless you get rolling now. So could you do it with your opting out, even though we might not be ready? Could it be done that way, kind of?
We could, but I want to do the work with the contractor first to see if the contractor can even do it. We did get a second bid for aerial larviciding this year, which we haven't for 5 years. But you can see the spread between the two contractors as well. I'd rather do the work with the contractor to define the areas they recommend spraying before we get that out. This contract we're working with Ramara, we've worked with many times in the past. We've already started conversations on how to move the program forward. Their spring is busy because this is the nature of their business. But once we get out of their spring busy season, I want to get right into it with them to move things forward. So hopefully early midsummer, I'll have a report coming back to council with the plan to move forward with the program for 2025.
Thank you.
Councilor Fisher.
Okay, so this isn't dollars and cents. This is just a question you may or may not know the answer to. I know one of the concerns that Councillor you had before was making sure that it was a safe larvicide to protect the salamanders.
Yes.
My question is there more than just mosquitoes that could be affected by the larvicide that's being used? And you may or may not have that answer. And the reason why I'm asking is my hope is that maybe ticks, as somebody who suffers from Lyme disease and would not wish it on their worst enemy. I don't know if that's something that maybe we could also in the future investigate if it's not part of what the larviciding covers now, something that we can look at. Mosquitoes are annoying, but ticks are lethal. So it's not really-
I can inquire with the contractor to see if ticks can be included and what that would look like. So,
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor? That is carried. Back to you. Oh, any unfinished or new business? Councilor T.
Thanks. I just have a question on parking. Ashley, if you could put up the image of the parking section on Orkney Beach Road. So this is through the chair to John. I have concerns about this one spot on Orkney Beach Road, which currently has no parking on the south side. Given that
I'm wondering if this would be more appropriate to bring up under protective services, Councillor, to you.
Oh,
Wouldn't deal with the rest of the parking issues
okay.
under enforcement.
I did clarify with John ahead of time. that
Okay,
this is
okay,
not part
proceed.
of the waterfront's parking strategy. It's just generic parking. Hopefully this is still appropriate. Given that the road is very narrow and densely populated with lots of kids and pedestrian traffic, and with this particular 200-meter stretch being flanked by blind curves, the residents have requested that to also not allow parking on the north side in this exact same spot. Through the chair, I would like to make a motion that we also include the north side of the street as part of this no parking that's on the south side.
Go ahead.
Well, I would second that we have staff get us a report on it. Like, we'll have Josh take a look at it. If that's okay.
Okay, so yeah, right, thank you.
So you change your motion to you're requesting a staff report?
Requesting a report to the feasibility of that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's been seconded by Mayor Clark. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Any other unfinished or new business? All right, just a quick reminder that half loads are now on until what date, Zach? March 30th. Yeah, March 30th. Okay, back to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now Administration and Finance, Councillor Snutch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only one item today, item 5.1 of the compressed work week trial update. It's report AD 0624. The recommendation that council receive report AD 0624 compressed work week update as information, and that council endorsed the revised HR policy 2.17 compressed work week 9-month trial, and that the compressed work week trial continue as revised until December 2024 with a follow-up report sent to council in December 2024. Can I have someone put that on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Thank you, Councillor. To you. Questions? Yes, Mr.
It
Mayor.
is mentioned in the report, but I'll just announce it. So the managers will work to ensure somebody is in all the time in that department. If there's a vacation or something, that they'll have to adjust the work week accordingly.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to continue to make sure that there's always coverage.
Any other questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Mine's not really a question. It's more just a comment. And I just congratulations to Zach and to the rest of the staff for being able to adopt a new policy like this. It's forward thinking. And if it's creating a happier work environment, then just that's really great. So congratulations. Good work.
Councillor Fisher.
Thanks. And I just want to follow up with what Councillor Bell had just said. I have received no negative feedback from members of the public with gaining access to staff to answer any type of inquiries, and even myself. I've not noticed a change in service levels at all. And I mean, the morale here was already great, so I don't know that it can get better than already great. So, but I'm sure your staff are feeling it. So good job.
Okay, all in favor with the recommendation? Passed. Any unfinished or new business? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. It's just a follow-up. So last year in June, we passed a recommendation, CW 13323, just in case we need to look it up, that staff provide space for a job board in the main foyer on a 6-month trial basis, and that the job board be maintained by the Ramara Chamber of Commerce. So what had happened was that was an idea that the chamber had wanted to move forward with at that time. Personnel within the chamber had changed, and that piece of communication didn't make it, I don't think, from the previous to the new. So the job board didn't actually get used during that 6-month period. But now, as you know, the chamber is doing the job fair this year, and it seems to be going in the direction of being very successful. But as a result of that, they've now had some requests to use the job board. And there was staff that were unaware. And I think just because it didn't get used and it's been 6 months. So when they tried to go post something, they were asked not to post it. So, and I know we're now past that 6-month window. So I think it just got lost because then the chamber didn't try to use it. And so I'm wondering if we can extend that 6 months from now, moving forward over the next 6-month time period, now that there's an opportunity for it to be used.
Yeah, if I could just speak to that, I believe the chamber member did approach our staff, and we were just waiting for an employee to be back in the office to set up a location. So we are working on putting it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So we don't need to do a new motion. We can just move forward with a 6-month trial beginning now. Is that, or does, I don't know what council's appetite
Yeah,
is.
I have no issue with that.
It's from when it goes up.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I just wanted to make sure that they could actually use it. I appreciate it.
Any other unfinished or new business? Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have culture and recreation now. Back to the deputy mayor.
There are no items on the agenda today. Any unfinished or new business? I'm not seeing any. Oh, go ahead.
Nope.
No. Okay. I just had one question to follow up. We did ask for a staff report for starting baseball and flag football. Do we have an idea when that's coming back to council?
Sorry, flag football and the leagues.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that from rec, John?
There hasn't been any action taken on it. I thought that the direction that staff were sort of leaning towards was finding out what the appetite was to our recreation master plan, which that has started. That process has started.
Okay.
So the other factor in looking at having a league is we don't have a field that's ready in order to facilitate that league right now.
Gotcha. I think the question was just to see what the cost would be to get a league started in each. That was the initial report. So, and I did offer to get some volunteers ready to get a field prepped and ready to go for this year.
that Deputy Mayor Bell, that staff can prepare if it's just a costing or looking for budget for 2025? Okay, so what we'll do is we can put some numbers together based on the participation level and what will be required for the township, as well as bringing the fields up to a certain level where they can be played upon.
And I think when we're looking at the fields to bring them back to a level, we're not looking to have them returfed and, new sod. And we're just talking about working it up so kids can play on it. That's all. Back to you, Mayor.
Okay, next I have Environmental Services, Councillor Tuyu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one item on the agenda today. 7.1 Drinking Water Annual Reports, ID 0924. Recommendation that council receive report ID 0924 regarding the completion of the 2023 annual drinking water reports as information. Can somebody please put this on the floor? Councillor Fisher, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bell. Thank you. I guess before opening it up for questions and discussion, Josh or Diana, did you want to talk about the report? I can start off with a question if that would help, or
I believe Aqua was coming to the meeting as well. So if there is any questions on the report, they can answer as well.
it's in there. Hi, Nick.
morning.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if you want to get into it. I mean, it looks all pretty, everything's looking good, but I just had a specific question and I wanted to talk about the different water systems in Ramara. They don't necessarily all have the same water source. So for example, some take from the lake, some take from wells, and with the municipal wells, there are two different types. So Goody, which is short for groundwater under direct influence of surface water, and non-Goody, which obviously is not under influence. I guess my question is Davy Drive, which is considered a Goody well. So is that the reason why we had those elevated HAA levels, was because more chlorine is required to keep that well in check?
Not necessarily, no. So Goody wells are essentially treated like a surface water source. So it changes the requirements for treatment components. So DV Drive, for instance, has filters and UV. Depending on the Goody source, it can also affect the chlorine usage, but a lot of the chlorine usage at Davy Drive, similarly to Park Lane, is more related to iron and manganese in the water. But the organic components is what generates the elevated HAA levels.
Okay, thanks. I guess I also have a comment. As a water user on one of our water systems, I would like to give my thanks to Josh, Diana, and the Aqua team for ensuring the safety of our water so we don't have to. Does anybody else have a question on the report? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. My question is around flows at Brecon and Lagoon City. So the report notes that during the snow melt event in January of 23, we came close to have to hauling water in. And did we experience that at any other time? Has that been traditional? Because I did not go back and read every single report for that specific piece of information. And I guess, what is it just completely, so I know it's weather dependent, I get that, but are we expecting this to continue moving forward? Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? Just can you talk about it a little bit and help me understand more? And then if we had to haul it, what would that look like? What would the timeline be for getting it delivered to the homes and that kind of thing?
Certainly. So there are seasonal fluctuations. Sustained rain events can cause issues as well. The majority of the drainage, Josh would know exactly where it all goes, but a lot of the drainage from the north end of Brecon goes through near the Mews and Lagoon City and out the main canal into Lake Simcoe. And that is where the intake is. So sustained rain events can create elevated turbidity and color events, which can affect the water plant. Generally, we would see them for a couple days, and things like wave action in the lake help break up those plumes so they don't make them as catastrophic for the facility. Unfortunately, this spring or last winter's event happened when there was ice on the lake. It wasn't completely froze over, but it was out a kilometer or two. So it kind of holds all of that turbidity and color right there, and the water plant is pulling from it. And unfortunately, the water plant is designed for a fairly clean water source, which Lake Simcoe generally is. And it operates very well with very clean water that is in Lake Simcoe. But when there is elevated color and turbidity events, the plant can struggle to clean the water and make it potable. So it's related to the filtration that is at the facility. So there's no sedimentation at that facility. It is a direct filtration plant. So the elevated color and turbidity is very hard for it to handle. That was the worst event we have seen there. We do seasonally probably get about 2 to 3 events where we'll have a few days where it's sustained and the plant just has to run at a slower rate. But that one was sustained for a couple of weeks. And as far as the hauling, the idea with the hauling was to actually haul water to the facility and distribute it from there. So it would have been hauling of potable water from a neighboring municipality from their treated water facilities and trucking it to Lagoon City to supplement the water there. So the plant was still making water. It was just making it at a substantially slower rate than it normally would.
Thank you.
One other quick comment. So that issue we had last Christmas, it wasn't just specific to Ramara Township. It was most municipalities that draw water from Lake Simcoe. So it wasn't a specific issue here. It was kind of felt to all municipalities that take water from the lake.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks. Are there any other questions on the report? Seeing none, I guess let's vote that council receive report ID 0924 regarding the completion of the 2023 annual drinking water reports as information. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. In unfinished or new business, I just quickly wanted to ask Josh, can you give any update as to what's happening with the bulk water services at the Brecken Water Tower?
Yeah, so on Friday, we had a contractor inform us that there was reduced water pressure at the tower. Upon inspection, we found the 2 sump pumps that pumped that chamber out had failed. So the maintenance chamber actually filled up with water. With that filling up with water, it was found that the high water alarm no longer worked at the same time. So it was kind of the worst of all cases. So the tower is operational, but the bulk water servicing is non-operational. We're hoping to have it back up and running later this afternoon. There was an electronic valve that was submerged that can't be submerged with water. So we've ordered the replacement of that, as well as a couple. I had it in my head a minute ago. Sorry. It's a solenoid, basically, an on-off solenoid. So those 3 things we got to replace, as well as the 2 sump pumps. So we should have everything back up and running. We're hoping later this afternoon.
That's great news. Is there any other unfinished or new business? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead, Zach.
I just wanted to bring up a comment that I didn't get on the agenda in time. We have tentatively scheduled internally a meeting as requested at last council for the 21st of March. Council requested it to do a open house meeting for the water and sewer rates before the bylaw came to council. So we picked the date of the 21st. We have not received any questions and we're not quite 100% sure what to present. We're going to represent the water rate study that Minot prepared. So that's going to be there. But I just wanted to give council an update. So we haven't released that publicly yet, but we're going to go forward with that date if council wishes or pick another date, whatever council wants to move forward with.
Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Zach. So my first comment is that what the community have been looking for was a deferral, obviously. So there was time for them to come together and present you with questions, because quite a few of them aren't here. So there will be questions coming from my community to you. They're working together to build those questions. So that's probably why you haven't seen them yet. As far as March 21st, it's clearly too soon. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that you may not have the turnout and it may not give the opportunity for the community to speak, but we already knew that and we already carried it. So there's nothing I can do about that. But there was discussion around having a second opportunity that would occur in June or July when the community is actually here to be able to ask their questions. So they're feeling right now, the feedback I'm getting is their concerns weren't heard anyway. And the study proceeded and the rates are going to be set for at least the next year or two. So their feeling is, why rush this right now? It doesn't make any sense. There's no net change that can occur. So I think it's great if we proceed with the March 21st, just knowing that the room may be empty or at least with a low turnout rate. But I don't want to lose sight of the opportunity to have that meeting when the people are here, which was also what we discussed. So when you and I have spoken about it, you had suggested June maybe. So I just want to be sure that we're looking at that June date, and then maybe that date can be a little more well communicated in advance so that people are aware.
Yeah, if council wishes, I would lean on the direction of council for another open house. Just it takes staff time and preparation. So I want to make sure council's on board with that because it's after hours as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Snatch.
So wouldn't it be best to do baby steps and have the meeting on March 21st and see what we need to do after that in case that one meeting does resolve everything?
Yep, we can.
So we'll decide after March 21st. That's all.
Sounds good. Deputy Mayor Bell, did you have a question? No. Councillor Bell?
Thank you. So to be clear, as I said, nobody wants to come on March 21st. So if we're going to use March 21st as a way of gauging what the community wants, then we may as well say now that we're not going to bother having one in June because they're not here to come on March 21st. So I'm not sure how much more clear I can make that. And as well, if you recall the discussion, they didn't ask to have the report presented again. They're looking for community-driven engagement where they present their questions and have their questions answered. So yes, the report will be part of it. They will probably have questions about the report, but just for clarity, they're not looking for a presentation. They're looking for community-driven engagement. So I just don't know why we're already deciding that March 21st, we're going to make a decision based on me just telling you that for the most part, the people can't be here. So I don't want to say that we're going to base the decision on the turnout for March 21st. So if that's what council is saying right now, though I'm not supporting that. I'm supporting the community engagement that people asked for.
Go ahead, Councillor Snatch.
Just to Councillor Bell, what decision were you referring to when you said we make a decision based on March 21st? I thought it was an information session for people to ask questions and for us to respond and maybe point them in the direction of where all this information is. I didn't know we were making a decision based on March 21st, but if anybody wants to correct me, that's fine.
You just said that you were hoping
ahead,
to
Mayor.
decide whether we could have an engagement, a proper engagement in June based on March 21st.
Oh, you mean the decision to have the
Yeah.
next meeting? Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Bell.
Yeah, I don't think it has any bearing on what's going to happen. If we have to have the vote to put the bylaw in, I don't think that's the issue. I think from what I'm hearing from the community that I've talked to is they still want to have an open house so they can have an engagement with council and try to talk about resolutions moving forward. That was my take. And so if that's the case, I'm fine with just not doing them at March 21st. If it's not having any impact on the vote and just postponing it until June. I don't see the harm in that. So we're not doubling up staff time. I think that would be fine.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm fine with that suggestion as well. However, council meeting approved it on the 21st. So how in committee now do we defer that to just have the open? Because that's what it is. It's an open house. People can come get their questions answered. Basically, you're going to present the same thing you presented to the folks who are here to explain the water rates and why. Can we defer that today, being as we're not back in council until the 25th and the meeting would have already happened?
Well, it's not a scheduled It's not a special council meeting. It's not a regular council meeting. It's an open house. So we could post notice that the open house has been postponed until
June.
a date in June, a later date.
I'll-
But I need a resolution that we post notice now
Okay, I'll second that then. If-
and
if-
that this motion be ratified prior to council resolution
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because we'd have to ratify it today
in order for
to
it.
trump the council meeting.
I just don't know if it's an opportunity to clarify, but I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing Councillor Bell saying they don't want a presentation and that we're here to answer questions. So, because the mayor brought up presentation again. So you're going to be answering the questions of, now, do you want those questions all submitted ahead of time? Because in addition to setting, saying there's a thing in June, we'll have to, all comments must be in by such and such a time so you can do your research.
Yeah, ideally, we'd like most of the questions in ahead of time so we can prepare answers. If there are additional questions that relate to the questions that came in, like follow-up questions, we have no problem answering those, but just we may not have that information if depending on the nature of the questions. But it doesn't need to be a presentation format. Of course, we can just do it more informally. However, we see fit, I guess, and how staff wants to approach it.
Go ahead, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I just want clarification. I'm trying to look it up on my computer, but it's now decided to have a mind of its own and freeze. When we received the report from the Committee of the Whole 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, because it was the combination meeting, did we actually say, was that motion for March 21st or was it?
No, it was a date prior to, for the passing of the bylaw.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So I think, Zach, in the email thread that we have with the community members, they had a date in June that they were thinking of. I think it was June 1st. We can pull that up, but do we need to have the actual date today? Are you okay with just? Okay.
No, the way I'm going to word the motion is that it be deferred to a date in May or June.
Okay. And just for clarity, yes, there probably would be some level of presentation, but that's not specifically what the community was asking for, was not just for us to stand there and talk to them. So just, it seems we're having a lot of hard time being hung up on what people are looking for. So what they're looking for is to have questions answered. So you may have to present, yes, some information, and yes, they are planning to submit the questions ahead of time and they're working on them now, at least from my community or people in Ward 4. So I can't speak for the rest of the township, obviously, because I haven't heard from the entire township, but I do know that they are working on preparing those questions for you.
Yeah, on that note, maybe deferring would be a good idea, because having a funny feeling that I know what these questions are going to be, I think it's only right that the rest of the township has the opportunity to be at this meeting too. So that gives everybody some time to be prepared for that. So is that the motion then, that we defer this meeting to which date? May or June? Okay.
You need your mic on, Jen.
June. That the open house be deferred regarding the water and sewer rates be deferred to a date in May or June, and that this be ratified prior to the next council meeting in March.
Okay, all in favor for that? That's carried. Is there any other unfinished or new business? No, seeing none. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, I'll go on to planning and development. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's one item on the agenda and it's cash in lieu of parking bylaw. The recommendation is that council receive report BP 0724 dated March 11th, 2024 regarding a proposed cash in lieu of parking process as information, and that staff proceed with the implementation of the process, and that the cash in lieu of parking bylaw be forwarded to the March 25th, 2024 council meeting for consideration. Can I have somebody put that on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Tuyu. Not sure if there's any questions, but I do know that Jen will lead her here. So Mayor.
No, just a comment. No, I'm glad to see us move ahead with this, because as Bracken with the CIP and as businesses come, we're going to have to establish some municipal parking within this area. So it'd be nice to have money for that. I guess the only concern I have, we need to look at our parking bylaw in general, because I remember when the fellows that bought the first hotel, the Athlete Arms, tore it down, everything they wanted to do, our parking bylaw, they couldn't fit the parking on a 7-acre piece of parcel land, so that they couldn't go ahead with anything. So we need to take another look at our parking bylaw township wide on what we require, because the amount of lots they had to have was astronomical, and they could not make it work, which is why that land is just sitting vacant. So I support this motion, but could we please have a look at the parking township wide as well?
Through Councillor Fisher to the mayor, we will be looking at the parking requirements in the zoning bylaw review after the OP is through. And if there's any coordination that has to happen between legislative services, the actual parking enforcement bylaw and parking requirements, we'll work on that at the same time.
Are there any other questions with this report? No. Okay, so the recommendation is that council receive report BP 0724 dated March 11th, 2024 regarding a proposed cash in lieu of parking process as information, and that staff proceed with the implementation of the process, and that the cash in lieu of parking bylaw be forwarded to the March 25th, 2024 council meeting for consideration. All in favor? And that is carried. Is there any unfinished or new business? I don't see any, so back to you, your worship.
Thank you. Okay, where are we now? That's planning and development. We'll move on to protective services. Councillor Bell. Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 items on the agenda today. So the first is 9.1, Ramara Fire and Rescue Services 2023 Statistics on Calls for Service, PDF, FDO 124 PDF. Recommendation that we receive report FDO 124 Ramara Fire and Rescue Services 2023 Statistics on Call for Services information. Can I have somebody put that on the floor, please? Councillor Fisher and Deputy Mayor. I don't have questions myself. Tony, is there anything you want to add to the report?
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I really don't have anything to add. I believe the report is pretty self-explanatory. I can certainly answer any questions. You'll see that our response totals are almost a mirror of the previous year. So I guess depending how you look at it, that could be a good thing. We haven't increased. We haven't necessarily decreased, but the changes, as I wrote in the report, are very minor. And we are always looking to the future, and you know, from these discussions around the table with possible development, we're just maintaining that and looking to what we will have to be proactive in maintaining a good level of service to our constituents.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I shut myself off. All in favor? Okay, and the next is 9.2, amendment of the Property Standards Bylaw 2019.016 to include new provisions for the buffering of residential lighting. So it's CDO 624, and the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole receive report CDO 624 as information, and that the bylaw to amend Property Standards Bylaw 2019.016 that includes new provisions for the buffering of lighting to be forwarded to Council for approval. Can I have somebody put that on the floor, please? Councillor Fisher and Mayor Clark. I think it's straightforward. Do we want to hear from John? No? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. And sorry. Oh. I didn't even see you come in. I'm so sorry.
Give him the spotlight.
Sorry, John. I didn't even see you come through the door. You must have come that way. Okay, you snuck up on me. I apologize. Well, since you're here, thank you for organizing that for us. I guess I just have one comment, which is will you add a property standards nuisance lighting onto reported concern, or will it have its own category?
I think with this one, because it's so specific, we'll make it its own category on reported concern so it doesn't get lost in the list.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that, just because I actually had a call from somebody that on the 26th later in the day saying she wants to be able to use it as well. So thank you. Oh, sorry, David.
Sorry, I was just thinking. So once this bylaw goes in place, what about municipal lighting that doesn't meet? Does that apply? Like a street light?
No, so the streetlights wouldn't need to conform to this. It would be anything that's purposely being directed.
It's to be purposely directed.
Right.
So if you have a spotlight up, you can't be forced to put a shade on the one side so it doesn't shine into your neighbor's window.
Well, it could, if we're gonna have to, that one could meet the requirements of the bylaw. So anything that's shining directly into a residential unit is subject to that, but it would not include municipal streetlights.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor to you.
Yeah, just to clarify the word deliberately, sometimes these things aren't done deliberately, but the people, who feel that they need to see their entire property from their house have a whole spotlight shining outwards, which affects people, whether people intend to or not. So would this be part of this light trespass bylaw?
So the way the wording of it's written is that it's shining into a dwelling unit. So if it's illuminating another person's yard, then I would say that's not a contravention of the bylaw. However, if the light is trespassing into the dwelling unit, whether it be into a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom, that would be a contravention, and we would issue an order based on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just about intent. Thanks.
Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. And then we're on to 9.3, the waterfront parking strategy and resident parking program. So it's, I have a recommendation that committee of the whole receive report CDO 724 as information, and that the proposed 2024 waterfront strategy and resident parking permit program be implemented for 2024. Can I have somebody put that on the floor? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Fisher. And this one you may probably want to speak to. Thank you, John.
Thank you. So we reviewed 2023 and the successes of the program last year. From the standpoint of managing parking within our waterfront area, specifically along Lake Simcoe, the resident program really seemed to be effective. Lagoon City, it seems to minimize the amount of complaints or issues that come up in Lagoon City because of the requirement to have a permit. So I'm fully recommending that we maintain the resident parking program in Lagoon City. Lakeshore, it seemed to have an effect on preventing a lot of vehicles from parking along Lakeshore. It is narrow in some spots, and it does impede people walking when we have a large number of vehicles parking along Lakeshore. So I think it's important to maintain that restriction of reducing the amount of vehicles that are permitted to park along Lakeshore to the 2 per residential lot, 3 if they purchase a permit. The parking lots where we've maintained honk, it is working Bluebird. We are generating revenues through those lots through Lagoon City. It's also providing people that are not residents with a location where they can park for a reasonable fee in those lots. So I'm fully supportive of continuing those locations as paid locations. And our paid on-street locations are not quite as used as I thought they might be. But I think it does provide a couple of additional areas for non-residents to access some of our waterfront zones. So I think it was a success. The number of complaints about the program, yes, people did want additional permits for residential lots, but I think if we start going too far in the number of permits we issue for each property, we might as well just get rid of the program at that point because everybody's going to have a permit. We did implement the special occasion permit, and that will still be active on our website if we go forward. So if they're having a family reunion, a gathering, social event, anything of that nature, they can apply for up to 25 permits for the specific 1 or 2 days that the event is occurring. They put them in their dash and they won't receive tickets in that time frame. So we do have those programs in place. I think it was a success, and I don't see at this time any need for change for 2024.
Thank you, John. Any questions, Councillor Fisher?
Thank you. I believe when this report was written, it was probably before the trees had to come down over close to the public beach access in where we have the honk program over in Lagoon City. And I'm not necessarily asking for a report because that's a lot of money to create a report just to have some idea. In your opinion, would that area benefit from a few more parking spots now that those trees are down if we I'm not talking about necessarily even paving it because that's expensive too, but with some gravel, like to create more parking in that parkette, which is right across the street from the park and the waterfront.
Maybe Josh could help me a little bit and I can add on to his answer.
Yeah, I think it would benefit there. The only issue just with the soil characteristics, there's a lot of work that goes into stabilizing the area to be able to put traffic on it. In the winter is a little bit different because it freezes, but if the idea is for winter, like I know Sherry and I have talked about it for snowmobiles to get them off the roads and into that parking lot. It'd be frozen, so it'd be a lot more firm at that point. But my only concern with snowmobiles is the size, because you're gonna have to make it big enough for the trailers to get in, to get out, to maneuver around. So I think it's a great spot. Just we'll have to figure out some numbers and come back to council possibly for 2025 budgetary to get a parking lot over there.
Okay, so to figure out numbers, do I need to ask for a report like after this afternoon unfinished, or is that just an information piece?
Yeah, no, if you want to do a motion for a report, we can come back with budgetary for 2025.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, is this something we can add to this motion?
We can
or
add
should
to
it
this
be a
one, yeah,
new-
and that staff prepare a report to investigate the expansion of the parking lot in Lagoon City.
Sure.
So-
Public beach.
Yeah, the public beach. Well, before I put that on the floor, maybe we should have, through the chair, maybe John might want to talk first before I ask for that.
Thanks, Jen. Actually, I was going to be bringing that anyway because I need it solved for the winter parking as well. So I was going to bring it when we got to that part of the discussion, but and definitely I'll want to be putting that motion on the floor anyway. And I will want to be looking at a parking lot that has like a pull through capacity because we already have the mailboxes there. So it will allow for trucks and trailers to be able to access the parking lot during the winter ice fishing season. So that's where I was going anyway. And John, I know you want to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just think if the parking lot capacities are increased, I think there will be people to use it in the summer, obviously, and then in the winter, it sounds like there's a need. And I think revenues will obviously increase with the increased usage. So I think there's a benefit there that, yes, there'll be some costs, but maybe we can offset some of those costs with the revenues.
Yeah, we're on the same page, Jen, for sure. Deputy Mayor, you had your.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just wondering about Park Lane. I've heard a lot of people talk about Park Lane. At one time, you could park your vehicles there. You can't even park anymore, which is an issue. I mean, I've gone down with my kayaks. We have to coordinate dropping them off, taking our vehicle home, and getting someone to take us back to drop us off to go kayaking, and then reverse when we come back. So, is there any way to allow cars to park without boat trailers, like anything to allow people to utilize that park for more than dropping the boat off and going?
We can, and there's been a lot of back and forth the previous council and this council with land ownership up there and what we can and can't permit parking. I don't know if Zach, if you have any more detail on that, but the direction has been there's too much congestion up there with allowing the parking of vehicles. Perhaps it was a more COVID related issue and it's settled now, but there are some land ownership issues as far as I understood up there that may prevent us from increasing the parking because we don't actually have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the detail. We can't increase that. We can't increase the parking there. We're at the size of the end of our ownership of land.
Gotcha, but it doesn't even allow for parking there right now. There is no parking.
Yeah, I think there's 3 spots.
No, there were signs there last year that said no parking in the actual.
Right at the river.
I don't think so.
They're loading and unloading only. They're 10-minute spots.
Only. You can't park there.
Yes, I'm sure.
That's a challenge, right? I mean, we know how silly that sounds to drive a boat or stuff there and then not be able to park anywhere.
Agreed. I think the locations that make sense, sorry, through Madam Chair, that makes sense for the parking is land we don't own. So if we created parking spots on the land we do own, there's literally nowhere for the vehicles to drive down and turn around. That's the challenge.
I understand your point. I
Yeah.
mean, most people back in off the road, so they're not looking to come pull in and turn
Mhm.
around in that small space. That's what I was saying. If we had non-trailer parking just for people who are using it for day kayaking, whatever.
Any other questions? Mayor, sorry.
Down by the marina, what's posted now? Is it's no parking or it's resident parking across from the marina?
Sorry, in Lagoon City,
Lagoon
Mayor?
City, yes.
Yeah, so it would be resident parking passes are required on street on both lengths in front of the marina.
Would there be any appetite for a honk paid parking in that area? Because that's what the marina is saying, the folks that want to park there aren't residences, so there's nowhere to park, where they would gladly pay if they could pay for parking on the street and then use, if they get the restaurant open again, or if they're out in their boats. And I don't know how that happens. If you're renting a slip for the summer, are you now a resident because you're, do you get a resident permit or no?
Traditionally, no,
I
we have
wouldn't think
not,
so,
through
yeah.
Mount Chair, we have not provided slip holders with passes because they're not paying property taxes.
And we're under no obligation to provide commercial parking for a marina. I mean, they should have their own on-site parking, I understand, but we could, why not switch it to paid parking? Is there any appetite for that if somebody wants to park there, as long as they pay? Or is that another area you'd now have to monitor? You have paid parking throughout Lagoon City, do you not? Down?
Through the chair. So we have on the lake, we
Right.
have one area that is paid parking.
So you're in the area checking it, that's why, yeah.
I mean, whether we're checking it for, do they have a permit, or we're checking it to see if they've paid, the process doesn't change.
Right.
So a parked vehicle is a parked vehicle. It's going to take the same amount of man hours to do it. It's do we want to open up that area to non-residents? And should the marina be providing off-street parking as part of their commercial operation for these individuals? If there's a restaurant opening up, shouldn't that restaurant be providing parking? I know the cash and lieu was just discussed.
Yeah.
And you know, if we're gonna start that program, then yeah, you are gonna have less parking on these private commercial lots for the patrons. But yes, we can do it anywhere, Mary. If council is interested in increasing the honk zone, then we can do that. We already have a small section at the trailhead that is free parking for trailhead users, or for the trail users. So we could increase it in those areas as well to give trail users the opportunity to pay for parking as well in that area. So there's multiple people who could benefit from paid parking there. It's whether the residents of Lagoon City want to see those areas opened up. I mean, most residents aren't parking over there.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The
Mhm.
lots are pretty much empty, are they not? So we might as well put some paid parking in and sell the lots. But what's the feeling of the rest of council?
I mean, from my perspective, why not? If you go to any other waterfront community, you have to pay for parking. So they're parking there anyway. And so if they're going to be parking there anyway, then I would say, sure, why not expand the honk and at the trailhead as well? Yeah, if you were a visitor anywhere else, you'd have to pay. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be charging it here. I guess I'll go to you first and then I'll come back to me, Councillor Fisher.
So I just want to circle back for a second with the whole not having a marina, people that are staying at the marina getting the parking passes because they're not taxpayers. I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, so this might be a little bit of an aside conversation, but people who are renting the condominiums, not people who are just coming in for the day or the weekend, of course, that's just like you're staying at a hotel for a weekend, I suppose, but our residents that are staying at the condominiums, like I thought that they were eligible to vote, so that they should be eligible to receive a parking pass, in my opinion. Like maybe this just hasn't been a conversation that we've had before.
Thank you, Jen. That they do. The condominium people are owners, and they also receive wristbands for using the beaches. So they are slightly different, but they can park at their own slips. So I don't know that they even, I mean, they may want the passes, and I suppose if they came and asked for them, but I think most of them they've got their own parking areas within. And the only time they would ever want it, I guess, is if they went to the beach. Yeah. And then, so, I mean, we probably should be issuing them if they want them, if they apply for them.
Yeah, Zach, perhaps you could answer this from a treasury standpoint. Would those individuals be in Keystone so
No,
we could look them up?
No, so the condominiums don't have their own roll numbers, so they wouldn't be eligible for, since all our parking passes are attached to a roll number, they wouldn't be eligible for a parking permit.
So, but they do own them. So then would there be, can we have a process where they can apply? Like they would have to obviously come to you and apply because you don't know who they are if they don't, but we wouldn't not issue them. Like, do we have a process that says we will issue you one?
No, oh, go ahead,
We
John.
do, through the chair. So we have a couple of areas in the township where the property is under one ownership. There's multiple lots on there. So they pay their tax bill to the developer and then the developer pays. So those and the campgrounds, we have a couple of campgrounds. So we get them to compile a list of all the residents and their license plate numbers, and we issue the pass to them. So if there's a responsible person in charge of the condominiums that could take the lead, then we could issue those passes. But I wouldn't want to do them on a one by one kind of come to the counter.
So can you reach out to the marina, or do we need to do some kind of a motion, or how do you want to handle that then? So that we can make sure that we do have an open conversation with the manager over there.
I think it would be good for a motion only because our previous parking passes were for residents and specific tenants. So it would be good to include it in a motion, I think.
I won't be able to, but somebody else will be able to do it.
So, excuse me, could after?
This one as it stands and then the two other ones. Okay. I'll put that one on. Well, let's do.
Hang on.
sorry.
Yeah, let's just go because I still have things to say. So does anybody else have any questions before we move on? Okay, so my question to you, John, is are we having the same number of summer students joining for bylaw this year or more, or?
Through to you, we'll have 4 seasonal officers employed. So same as the last 2 years.
Okay, and that, I guess, because I'm wondering, I'm receiving calls from some other areas along the lake between South Ramara and Atherley. So one of the messages I received is from Cortlandt Street, and I'm just going to read what she said. People that use this launch are disrespectful. I've seen defecating, urinating, drug use, sex favors, needle use. The litter is disgusting. Boats, canoes, bottles, cans, needles, diapers, food packaging, fishing. I know so she recognizes that she has the paid parking. She says you're doing a great job with the honk app. But I guess what I'm wondering is if it's still that serious with the honk app and with you guys patrolling, is it too late to apply to have more summer students, or do we have the ability to modify that? I know that's a budgetary thing, but it feels, I'm just wondering, would you benefit? Or should we, for 25, look at having more officers?
Well, certainly it's a budgetary concern that council would have to look at. I'm familiar with these complaints. A lot of them are police matters. A lot of them have been investigated by our staff just because we want to go down there, and they're not always, they haven't always been valid. There's been some issues down there. But we haven't seen it to that extent, but we don't always get there in time either. So it's a mix, but a lot of these issues are a policing matter that our staff, whether you have 400 summer staff or one, we can't deal with, and we're not equipped to deal with criminal activities in any of the parts of the township, including there. It seems to be working. I don't think additional staff at this point would solve the problem there. We are about to transfer animal control fully back to Severn Township, so we will be freeing up our full-time officers for more duties within the township when they don't have to respond to Severn. So I think it should alleviate those issues.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So then the next thing I want to talk about is Simcoe Road. So I know we just talked about expanding the parking area, and that's good, but that'll be for 25. So when we get into now this 24-25 winter season, it's just like everything else we experience in the Lagoon City area. There's a conflict, right? So we have businesses that want to be able to operate, but we have residents who want to have the safety and sanctity of their property. The area around Simcoe Road was a nightmare. And it was a short season this year. But the congestion, I don't even know, you didn't end up having to do a lot of snow plowing, Josh, but if you had, I'm not sure how you could have worked in that area with cars parking. There's people going north, south, east, west. They're parked on both sides of the road oftentimes. And I know you have to go down and police that, John. But it's starting, the impact isn't just small at this point. People were afraid to walk in that area. As I said last meeting, the residents close by are afraid for their children to go outside and play. They're afraid to put their pets outside and take a walk on their own streets. You have Brecken Point Ice Hut Rentals that has done their due diligence and more to make sure that they organize parking for their customers. And all that is the result is that the cars who visit are going into the parking lot they've arranged for. So they're in a situation where they have to start threatening to tow people. And then that's not conducive to them running a business. And it's certainly not supporting the other businesses in town if we start having to tow cars away, even though it's being done by a private person. So we had 2 properties damaged this year. And yeah, we have residents afraid to walk on the street. So I think we need to have some kind of interim solution that we can put in place for the 24-25 ice fishing season. If we say no parking at all, I know that then you're just going to be down there ticketing people for parking anyway. So that's not going to necessarily solve it. So whether we implement a solution that says we allow them to park over by the mailboxes, whether we work with Talisker, for example, to see if there's a way that they can use the marina parking area. I don't know what the solution looks like, but I know that we can't operate this way for the 24-25 ice fishing season. So we're going to do the motion, I think, to talk about expanding the parking area and then what that might look like. But that's not going to help us this winter coming. And I can't have people being afraid to go outside their homes and have that much disruption at that corner. So I guess we need some kind of a staff report that talks about a 24-25 interim solution as well.
I guess something for you to wrap your head around and bring back some suggestions, probably September. Would you be coming back before the season anyway with an update on the projected year? Because I know we've been seeing you twice a year on parking since we brought this out, so.
Yeah, through the chair, I think we'll have to work with Josh to take a look at land and who's available and what the current restrictions are. Simcoe Street is all permit parking required now. We're not a no parking zone that's currently in place. So we do have the ability to issue some tickets, but again, if they're residents and they're parking there, then it makes it more difficult. But I could certainly end of August, early September, bring something back so we're well in advance of the winter season.
Maybe through to the clerk, do you want that as a separate motion then, Janet?
Yeah, so what I think we'll do, your worship, is we'll deal with 9.3. We have a mover and a seconder. And that motion is that Committee of the Whole receive report CDO 724's information, and that the proposed 2024 waterfront strategy and resident parking permit program be implemented for 2024. So we had Deputy Mayor Keith Bell move it and Councillor Fisher second it. So.
Okay, so all in favor of that? Okay, so that motion's carried.
So then we'll proceed to a motion regarding the expansion of the parking lot in Lagoon City by the public beach. Is that correct? By the public beach?
Correct, where the honk already is existing by the mailboxes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, and just that it's like a pull through situation gets created, however you want to call that. So trucks and trailers have the ability to do like a drive-through.
Okay.
We're looking on a report.
So just like a full
Yeah, we're looking
report,
for
yeah, like we
costing,
can
so I'll
incorporate
second
all
that.
those things, yeah.
We can
second that.
incorporate like a multi-seasonal so that it incorporates the
exactly.
snowmobiles and the.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and then was I hearing that there was a request for another motion
Yep.
regarding expanding the honk program
Yes,
to
Paradise, isn't it along?
Yeah, Paradise.
Paradise.
Paradise?
And well, in Laguna Parkway.
Sorry, didn't we just put those things in place for the trailhead? So because we wanted to encourage people to park there?
Through the chair, I don't think we would remove the free parking zone that's been created. I think we would just add on additional spots that could be
Okay,
paid.
got it.
So
Thanks.
they're getting more area, I guess, just paid.
Sorry, I thought we were removing the free because we were saying that if you visit any city, you have to pay for parking. So why would you come there for free? I'm not sure that, I mean, if you have your resident parking pass, it's free for you anyway. So it doesn't impact on our residents, but when visitors are coming, they'd be paying for parking just like anywhere you go on earth. So I thought that we were talking about no free parking. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, but I know the whole thing happened because we wanted to encourage people to get out and use the trails.
I
Through
know,
Madam
but-
Chair, there's 3 parking spaces
Yeah.
that have been, basically there's signage up that says these are free. That was a request of the Trails Committee and then a motion passed by committee and council to approve those free parking zones. So
If I may.
Go
I
ahead.
never like to go against my committees, the volunteer group, so I'm fine with the 3 staying, but then we just add paid. And if those spots are taken, well, then you gotta pay, and that way it does encourage working along with the committee, but we're adding more spots, just saying you need to pay for them. And the marina was included, yeah, it was all included in that, correct?
Yes.
But
Okay.
did you want to add the other one that we take another look or report back, or do you want that as a separate motion? On the, what Counselor Bell was just talking about?
Simcoe Road?
Yes, that we take another look at it in September prior to the snowmobile season to see if we can find options. Do you want that the same motion? or not?
Yes.
And
So I'll
we'll
put
do
all
that.
3 of these into the same motion.
Perfect.
So we'll put the expansion of the public beach lot in Lagoon City by the mailboxes, expanding the honk program to Paradise Boulevard and Laguna Parkway near the trailhead, and staff investigate parking solutions or options on Simcoe Road.
And so on Simcoe Road, but that's just a temporary solution for 4 or 5. Like it's just because if we're going to expand the parking lot, then it would just be, I'm just looking for a solution to get us through
Okay.
that winter.
Well, that can all roll into one report. Okay, so I need Councillor Bell, you need to move over in a second.
Yeah, so moved by the mayor and seconded by Councillor Fisher, and all in favor. So that is carried. And is there any unfinished or new, Jen?
And then the motion to investigate what the process is to get parking passes to our condominium people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I would need a confirmation. What do you mean by the document?
So people that have slips in the condominium are eligible to vote in any election.
I don't think so. Are they?
If someone if it's a timeshare or if it's a marina or if it's that sort of condominium, if you own 6 or more weeks and you have a lease agreement, then you're entitled to vote.
So this would be for, if I may get clarification, this is for like the marina slips? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's not the people that just come for a weekend to get a resident pass, but the people who would be here for the summer and continue to come here and spend their summers here in their slips. Because they're eligible to vote, I would argue to say that they're now residents, because we have other renters on land that don't pay property taxes and are eligible to receive a parking pass. So if we have renters, tenants living in the water regularly that are eligible to vote, then I would argue that if they want to come to town to go buy groceries, that they also might want to drive around to some of our other areas and perhaps park for the day.
So we would be looking for the marina or the commercial entity to provide those numbers. I don't think we want to go door to door looking for these folks. I think that would be something, because I know our campgrounds do that. They provide a list, do they not? And so we would be looking for the same thing. It would have to be organized by that commercial business to say, these are the license numbers that have rented and proof that they're there for, what is it, 6
Correct.
months?
Right. So it was just trying to get the information on how to get that communication out there. Is it just something that we post online? Is this something that I'm not sure. Like, we just
Well-
need to make sure that information gets there.
I think that it would have to be us doing the outreach, like through bylaws, so that John can go to the marina operator and make sure that they're aware. This is what we did with Parks and Waterways as well with the wristbands. We just went in and spoke to them so they understood. So, and yeah, there's owners of those condominiums, so they own those just like you own a piece of land. So, yeah, so if you want
Correct.
to.
So, yeah, so I'm not sure how to word that motion most appropriately. But that's my motion.
Can somebody, how many condominiums are there?
I don't know the number right off the hop right now. We would have to check in with the marina. I'm not going to say all of them, but it's typically the the covered slips, the ones that are underneath the enclosures. So whatever that number is, I do probably know it somewhere, but I don't have it at the top of mind right now. But it's enough people that there have been requests for them. And also there had been requests through the community center where the yacht club is, same idea. So we had issued, I think, a few passes to the yacht club for the same reason. It's just for when they want to go down to a beach or another park. And you're right, Jen, that's exactly what it's for. So Jen, do you want to word the recommendation?
Does council want to report, or do you want staff to investigate and implement if it's permitted?
I don't think we need a report. I think it's just John reaching out to.
Yeah,
the
no,
marina.
it not
Yeah.
to, it's a big expense to get a report back from staff time. So just the information on how we need to get that information out, or whatever motion is required to provide the direction to Zach so that he can provide the direction to
All
staff to
right,
get them
so
out there.
let staff investigate the eligibility of condominiums, timeshare, or not timeshare, marina, the ability to obtain a parking pass.
Right.
Well, condominiums are already
Yeah,
taken care of.
they're already-
Right.
I guess my concern, how owners, because I can think offhand of 5 marinas. Like there's 2 in Joyland Beach, there's a couple at the Narrows, there's 2 there, there's 1 Lagoon City. Like how many are we talking here? And it's like this,
Well,
there's a large number of them. And that's just what's on Lake Simcoe. I don't know how many marina slips are up in Cooching that would apply to this. That's my concern.
Right, but
So sorry, John, I'm just going to hop in for a second. There's a difference between somebody who's leasing a slip and somebody who owns a slip. So I think we want to clarify that, right? Condominiums are owned and like any other piece of property. So if we're just talking about condominiums, that's one thing. If we're talking about condominiums as well as leased slips, then that would, or leased spots in a campground, then that's different than the condominiums. So well, I don't know that. I mean, the people who are there for the summer might want to go visiting somewhere else in Ramara Township too. So I guess there's different ways it could be done. You could have like a sign or like a sign out thing at the marina instead of issuing one for every single slip. The marina could have, the condominium people are property owners. We'll just say property owners, right? That makes that nice and simple. But as far as the leased ones, I don't know how you do it with every other, like they could have a system, I suppose, at the marina where he's got 5 passes, let's say, that he can issue to people who want to go somewhere else in the township. We could implement something like that, maybe.
well, my concern is if these people are eligible to vote, then, and again, then maybe my opinion's wrong, but my opinion is if they're eligible to vote, then they're valued members of our community. And why are we now not providing parking passes when they're coming into our communities to go shopping, to get gasoline for their cars, to drive around, to use our amenities, to join our library, perhaps participate in our service clubs? Like they're voters, right? A lot of them, not, and again, not the ones who are here for 6 weeks or less, but the ones that spend their summer here, regardless if it's an owned condominium or a leased slip for the summer, they're voters. If we had a resident that would come here regularly every summer and had a lease for the summer, and now that we have this by-election coming up and we had one in Ward 4, they can vote, but they can't park. Like this
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Jen. And in fact, that's right. The people who are here for the summer are most definitely valued community members and they contribute to the local economy. So I guess I'm just saying the condominiums are different in the sense that they're owned, but if we were to, so we'd have to come up with a strategy as far as the least. And I would agree if they want to pass, they should just be able to go online and get one. They should be able to use their lot number or whatever.
Okay, so maybe I am asking for a report then, because this has got a little bit more convoluted as opposed.
Well, what we can do is, we know the intent of council is wanting that anyone that's able to get a parking pass to get a parking pass. So what we'll do is when we investigate, and if there is eligibility there, anyone that qualifies under the act that can vote will get a parking pass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
Which is what you said, 6 weeks lease during the year.
the way the Election Act reads is that owner or tenant in relation to an election means a person who is the owner or tenant shown on the assessment roll of land assessed under the Assessment Act and a non-residential tenant of land assessed under the Assessment Act, whether or not the tenant is shown on the assessment roll, but does not include an owner or tenant of land who is entitled to use that land under a timeshare contract, unless the person is entitled to use the land, A, on voting day, or B, a period of 6 weeks or more during the calendar year in which voting day of the election is held. And they have to meet all the other qualifications of a valid elector.
Dana?
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Through the chair, to John, can you just confirm, are the 2024 parking passes actually ready at this time yet?
No, I don't produce them until this is ratified by council. So this would be going to the council meeting in 2 weeks, and then once it's ratified, then they'd be produced. They take about 5 days to produce. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jen, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so whatever the motion was that Jen had read about, maybe, I guess, creating the definition of people for getting their parking passes. So that would be my motion put on the
So
floor.
are you wanting a staff report, or are you wanting us to because I'm thinking of the timelines as well too, if we wait for another staff report to come back, and it's clear that if you're leasing, then you can vote, then I think you should be able to have a parking pass. That makes sense. So I'm not sure if we need a staff report or do we just need staff direction? And part of that direction is obviously then reaching out to the campgrounds and the marinas so that they understand what the process is. So I don't know, do we want to hold this up with a staff report? Go ahead, Mayor.
I won't support it. I see the difference, just because you're allowed to vote. I see the difference between a year-round resident and a temporary resident. And if you're running a house, even if it's month to month, you're a year-round resident because it's your domicile. I do not see that with a boat slip. You're running from a commercial business. You're not a year-round tenant, so therefore I don't have an issue with you having to pay for parking. You're not here in the wintertime paying taxes towards the roads and keeping the roads open and the snowmobiles. So no, I do see a difference between being a year-round tenant and getting a park pass or being a renting a slip. I don't have a problem giving the marina 10 passes that they can hand out to folks, or 5 if that's, but I'm not interested in chasing down people that rent boat slips and trying to get track of who these folks are to give them permits. I wouldn't support it.
Okay, so I guess we're clearly having two different conversations. Just one sec, David. I obviously support what Jen's saying. I believe any residents who are in our community for any length of time, whether it's from May till October or whether it's year round, they are valued members of our community and most certainly contribute to our local economy. So if they'd like to go visit Wishago, for example, or leave Lagoon City and go to Atherley, I think they should have a parking pass to be able to do that. It sounds like there's going to be two different motions here. John, go ahead.
just for clarity purposes, if you are a tenant, so you rent a home in Brecken and you come in for a parking pass, we will turn you away. The owner of the property has to come in and get the parking pass. If they wish to put the tenant's license plate on that pass, that's the owner's decision, but we don't issue them to tenants. That the owner has to make the application.
So then that basically what sorry, Sherry, may I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're saying then you have a roll number if you own a slip, correct? Then I'm back to the roll numbers, and we just stick with the roll numbers the way we do it now.
Okay, I know David was next, and then I'll go back to you, Jen.
I just wonder how many requests did we have that we couldn't fulfill? Like, where's this situation arising from? Are we getting requests? We got 10 requests, 1 request, 100 requests?
Through the chair, though, one main request we got last year was from the yacht club, which we issued them a number of permits. They provided a list and we provided them with the permits for their members. And I don't fully understand the ownership there, but it was approved by motion by council to do that. There's another situation. There's a subdivision which is under one giant roll number. and we've issued, but that came up because those individuals kept coming in for their passes and we couldn't find them because they're not in the system. They're under that one. So we solved that problem by reaching out to the developer and getting all that information. And a member of that community took the lead and went door to door and got all the license plates and vehicle information from their neighbors. So those who wanted a permit could get a permit. Those are the only two.
I think there's a couple things here because I think what the mayor is basically. I think what the mayor is.
So sorry, David, are you asking for a redirect then?
A what?
Are you redirecting or do you have a second question?
No, I'm clarifying.
It's just like, I just got, you just all carried on. So, and I have no mic.
I think what the mayor is saying is that you don't want us to do the work to find all these people. But what problem, since we have 0 requests from what I'm hearing from John, we've had 0 requests from these boat slips owners for parking passes. What would be wrong with us issuing the odd one if somebody wants it, but we're not going to chase them and find out that, and go towards them. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a problem here. Nobody's requesting these things.
Thank you. I think that part of what happens is we all just assume that nobody's asking for things because there's no mechanism for them to ask for things, right? So that's an issue that I've been finding over and over and over again. So it's not a question of, do they have a desire for it? It's a question of, I don't even know how to ask for it. I didn't know I was allowed. So, or I didn't know that was available to me, whatever. So I think we're just getting right back to what we said in the first place, which is there's no reason why they can't have the pass. No, we're not going to necessarily go along and issue passes on a slip by slip or site by site basis. But if bylaw was able to do an outreach to the marinas and the trailer parks, that there's an opportunity for a parking pass. If a person wanted to have one, then John would be able to do the same process that he's already saying he's done in the past and issue those permits. But if they don't know they're allowed to have one, and then therefore they're limited in their ability to decide to go spend money and visit other areas of the township, then maybe they don't have the motivation to do that. But if they're aware that it's an option, then they may want the pass. So I think we're just back to right where we started, which is if John does outreach to those different places that have leased land, he could communicate with those owners that there's parking passes available and they can go implement the exact same process you're saying, go around the marina and find out on their own how many people want them and then tell you. So I think we're back to exactly where we started. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. So I hear that the mayor doesn't want to support the motion about if you're leasing, but I still think that there is validity in owners of the condominiums, just like we have owners of cottages, and they might only be here for the same period of time, and they're just as valued in our community. So maybe I'll have more success in changing the motion to get the passes for condominium owners. I don't know. Like,
Sorry,
I just
John.
think we are just now being very discriminatory of people who are choosing to stay here for a substantial amount of time. I recognize the challenge with being here for 6 weeks and you're leasing. That might be this year, might not be next year. Okay, great. But we do have owners of condominiums. And I mean, if we've already come up with a solution and if bylaw is already reaching out to the campgrounds, it's just adding 1 more or 7 more, however many marinas we have, stamps on an envelope to send out the information. It's not going to be weeks and weeks of chasing. It's here's the information for you.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, Jen. I think, John, the two of you just had a conversation there. So if there's something that you wanted to add.
No, I was just trying to establish how many of these there were in the township. That was my main concern, is like, how much outreach is this? Is this, I need to look up all these locations and phone them all? Or is this something that we can put on the township website on social media saying, if you're a campground and you meet this criteria, please contact John Popple and discuss parking passes.
Well,
for
I would ask if we
2024.
could just send a letter out, though. We only have whatever, it's 3 trailer parks and 7, like, I don't know the number of marinas without, I have to think it through, but off the top of my head, I think it's 7. But so we'd only be sending a handful of letters. And I just think if we did the outreach, then that would, and I also think the added benefit would be that it does signify to those members of our community who are here for more than half the year in a lot of cases that they're valued members of the community. Jen, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Bell, but actually I would support putting out the communication online and social media. If bylaw typically sends out letters to the campground to get those lists on a regular basis, then I would want them included. If it's just something that they just now know how to do, because we also have to remember that our residents also have a due diligence to pay attention to what's going on in their community too. And we've had quite a lengthy conversation that they're going to be able to find, to look for. So if we can get this resolved by saying, hey, even if it was a condominium owner that went to their marina and said, hey, listen, you need to go and do this for us on our behalf. Somebody's going to see it and somebody's going to be reaching out, right?
I don't think there's anything wrong with sending a letter though to those, obviously using social media and all the channels we always use, but to prepare a letter to just let the owners of the properties know that that's an option. Zach, I think you wanted to add something.
Well, I just wonder if it might be good to come back with a report. And the only reason I say that is there seems to be a lot of discussion on exactly what's going to be allowed. And I think it could be misinterpreted. We do have boat slips, campgrounds, condominiums, tenants. So who's going to be included in this for not people that don't have a roll number? Because we already don't allow it for tenants unless the owner comes in. So I think it would have to be well defined by council if we're going to go down this, and a report might be necessary.
Okay, so then Jen, do you want to just change your motion to ask for a staff report?
Okay, my motion is to ask for a staff report on everything we just discussed, please.
Thank you. Keith, are you seconding?
Yeah, I'll second. I also had a question.
Okay,
Just
go ahead.
clarification. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're checking with other municipalities. I know that the District of Muskoka never ever gave free passes out for this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. Other places that have the same kind of issues, and then we have a better answer.
Thank you. Yeah, I know Carling actually gives Carling does. So I mean, I guess it depends on, I just know people in Carling and I know they get passes, but yeah. So Jen's motion is for a staff report and Keith is seconding that, and all in favor. So that is carried. And I believe now I think that was all from me. Yes. So is there any new or unfinished business? Anybody? No? Okay, then I'll pass it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. And we have no in camera, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn and congratulate Amber on getting through your first meeting with this council. Okay, moved by Councillor Snudge, second by the Deputy Mayor. We now adjourn at, looks like 11:01 a.m. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.